maybe tell you a few common sources of unjustified fees, and we really think of four major classes of that. Number one is obvious, is misalignment of the benchmark. Family offices and multifamily offices are quite compartmentalized industry. They don't talk that much to each other, and there is no detailed information how much they pay per type of services, and banks are using that. And as a typical household, you would expect that higher AUM should lead to the better terms. And we are able to actually see this graph and eventually bring our clients to the perfect benchmark line. Another trick that banks may be doing with a client is that even though client is entitled, say, for institutional share class of a given mutual fund, banks would not be offering that, but they would be offering retail share class, which is more expensive. Very simple reason for that: institutional share class, by regulation, forbids any rebates by the bank, and retails allows that. So banks, at expense of the client, still pitch the retail share class. Why? Because they are collecting rebates fee on the other side of the story. Something that definitely needs to be checked by every investor if the amount of investment in the particular mutual fund allow you to get the best share class. Same story goes if you buy the internal bank product. Say you're a client of UBS or Credit Suisse, so you're buying UBS or Credit Suisse products inside them, you should be able to negotiate the institutional share class at spot, regardless of the minimal investment size. You're their clients, they are offering you their own products, they should be able to provide the best rates possible. Another story that banks are typically using, they are somewhere in the fine print, they write an overcharge on complex securities. Typically, it's doubling the custody fee that you're paying, and complex security, basically everything which is not equity or bonds. Any hedge fund, any private equity, any venture capital will be classified as complex securities and be ready to pay double custody from banks if you don't check it. Another story is, this is very favored by banks, is a Forex fee. A typical client would have a later structure for the Forex fee. What does it mean? For smaller amount, you pay something between 1 and 1.5%. As amount growing larger, you would go to something more meaningful, such as 2 bips or 5 bips. And clients rarely negotiate that, and this is where banks making fortune. If you trade constantly, say 100, 150 to $100,000 or euros in exchange, this generates a trace of 1.5% fees every time. So it is not that hard from our experience to negotiate directly the minimum amount, which goes with the highest fee, something 2 bips and 5 bips. Because for the bank, there is no difference, right? It's a simple transaction. There is no reason why they would charge you 1.5% for this fee. Similar story goes to brokerage. Banks are really showing very complex brokerage formula, something of varying equity types, US versus Europe, varying amount, varying mutual funds versus single lines. Again, all of that could be easily avoided, and we were observing quite easily negotiating this to one number, typically something 0.10 or 0.5 for regardless what type of security you would buy. Another story, and this is big one, even though it looks very easy, it's poor cash management. This definitely easily counts for maybe 1/3, 1/4 of all the savings we could achieve. Clients are getting sloppy with how they manage cash. Maybe this is a relic from lower rates environment where it didn't really matter. Should you put it on deposit or will you keep it in cash at 0 point something deposit rate? Now it's definitely not the case. Again, with rates approaching 4%, it should not be the case where client would have a significant idle cash amount in any currency, right? In US dollars, maybe the most permanent, but Swiss francs and euro are progressively moving into positive zone. Otherwise, cash generating opportunity cost. Another very common story that we see among the clients is that they do not negotiate cash out of their advisory or all-in mandate. A proper bank should not charge anything on the idle cash. Cash is your money, and bank is doing nothing with them. So they should not charge any money on that. Fourth story is what banks like to call our mistakes. But what we found, every mistake of the bank, it's always to the favor of the bank and never to the favor of the client. A typical examples could be they forgot to remove brokerage from all-in mandates, or they offer you what we call Russian doll fees. They sell you a fund, and within the fund, they put another fund of their own creation, and then charge a double layer fee structure here. You can think of all the rebates fee that they would have, but they will not disclose unless you specifically ask them. And in this case, they will not have other option but to do it by regulation. And lastly, what we found, it's very stupid. It's plain wrong charges. It's something that what is there but not agreed. By definition, clients believe banks are huge organization, they're computerized, there is no place for mistakes. And from my experience, we can tell you this is not the case. Many times banks did some human mistakes. They forgot to update your fees, or they charge you double on something. And it's definitely worth checking them once in a while. And last, I think the most advanced area where it's really hard to track it manually because it will require the hardest amount of efforts. This is not optimal asset location. Example could be an excessive use of intermediate. I give an example of a particular client. He would like to invest in venture capital. He approached the bank, already a bad start, with for asking for an advice what he do. He had 7 million, and immediately bank offered him an in-house vehicle to invest the venture capital through the in-house bank vehicle, fund of fund structure. Immediately generate lots of additional fees to the client without him knowing that with this amount of money, he should go straight directly to the venture capital, and he would be very much welcomed as a great client. With amount exceeding something 2, 3, 5 millions, investors should try to reach directly the final managers and not go to the intermediates. Another interesting story that we met very recently is cutoff dates. So typically you should know that, say, advisory on all-in mandates, the way it's being computed, bank takes the sum for the end of the month for 3 months, make an average, and then apply the fee, say 1% in this case. So there was a client who made a major liquidation event and generated 50 millions in cash. And unlucky for him, he put it on the bank on the 29th of August, basically 2 days before the cutoff time was off. And this amount generated a fee of the 0.3%, just because client didn't manage to put it 2 days later on this particular bank, because it went under the cutoff time. Other example of non-optimal asset location could be, again, I mentioned that all in-house products suggested by banks should go at a discount because you are their client and this is best practice. You should absolutely ask for that. And another example is for those who are resident of Switzerland. You may know that if your bank is a Swiss-based bank, every transaction you are making should be supported by a Swiss stamp duty of something 0.15 for, say, equity or bonds. Even though if you manage to open a bank account outside of Switzerland, think of any online broker or Germany, you can do the very same transaction, but do not pay Swiss stamp duty, simply for the reason that your bank account is not resided in Switzerland and you're not entitled to Swiss stamp duty. And this is a very important charge for those who are doing high turnover trades. Try to do it not as a Swiss-based banks, but somewhere outside.